Chapter 8. Favorite Teacher. In the corridors of Rohan's school, where the echoes of laughter and the rustling of textbooks filled the air, there was one teacher who stood out like a guiding star. Her name was Mrs. Verma, and she would become not only Rohan's favorite teacher, but also a source of inspiration and mentorship. Mrs. Verma, a petite woman with a warm smile and a passion for teaching, had a unique ability to ignite curiosity and instill a love for learning in her students. Her classroom was a haven of creativity, where imagination knew no bounds. Rohan first encountered Mrs. Verma in his 4th grade classroom. She walked into the room on the first day of the school year, carrying an air of enthusiasm that was infectious. Her eyes sparkled with a love for knowledge, and she greeted her students with genuine warmth. "Good morning, class," Mrs. Verma exclaimed, her voice filled with energy. "I'm Mrs. Verma, your new teacher, and I can't wait to embark on this exciting journey of learning with all of you." The students were immediately captivated by her presence. She encouraged questions, welcomed curiosity, and made learning an adventure rather than a chore. Rohan, whose thirst for knowledge was insatiable, felt an immediate connection with Mrs. Verma. One of the most memorable aspects of Mrs. Verma's teaching style was her storytelling. She had a gift for bringing history to life, weaving tales of ancient civilizations, brave explorers, and legendary heroes. Rohan sat at the edge of his seat, his eyes wide with wonder, as she transported the class to different times and places through her stories. Mrs. Verma's passion for history ignited a spark in Rohan's heart. He began to devour books on history, spending hours in the school library exploring different eras and cultures. Mrs. Verma nurtured his interest, providing him with additional reading materials, and encouraging him to share his discoveries with the class. In addition to history, Mrs. Verma had a deep love for the arts. She believed that creativity was a vital aspect of education, and she encouraged her students to express themselves through various forms of art. Rohan, with his talent for painting and storytelling, found a kindred spirit in his teacher. One day, Mrs. Verma introduced a project that would forever change Rohan's perspective on art. The assignment was to create a piece of artwork that depicted an emotion or a moment in history. Rohan chose to paint a scene from the struggle for India's independence, capturing the determination and resilience of the people. Mrs. Verma recognized the significance of Rohan's painting and encouraged him to enter it in a regional art competition. Rohan's artwork not only won the competition, but also earned a spot in a local art exhibition. It was a moment of pride for both Rohan and his teacher, a validation of the power of artistic expression. As Rohan progressed through his school years, Mrs. Verma continued to be his guiding light. She taught him the value of perseverance, the importance of critical thinking, and the joy of discovery. She often reminded her students that learning was not confined to the 4 walls of a classroom, but extended to the world beyond. One of the most impactful lessons Rohan learned from Mrs. Verma was the value of empathy and kindness. She encouraged her students to think about the world from different perspectives, to consider the struggles and triumphs of others, and to develop a sense of compassion. To reinforce this lesson, Mrs. Verma initiated a community service project. The class visited a nearby orphanage, where they spent time with the children, played games, and shared stories. It was a transformative experience for Rohan, as he realized the impact of small acts of kindness and the importance of giving back to the community. Mrs. Verma's classroom was not just a place of academic learning. It was a sanctuary where values were cultivated, dreams were nurtured, and bonds were formed. She believed in the potential of each student and encouraged them to believe in themselves. As Rohan approached his final year of high school, Mrs. Verma became not only his teacher, but also his mentor. She provided guidance on career choices, offered support during the stressful exam period, and instilled in him the belief that he could achieve anything he set his mind to. One of the most emotional moments of Rohan's school life occurred on the day of his high school graduation. Mrs. Verma, who had watched him grow from a curious 4th grader into a confident young adult, presented him with an envelope. "Rohan," she said, her voice filled with pride, Inside this envelope is a letter. It contains my best wishes for your future and a piece of advice. Never stop learning, never stop dreaming, and never stop being kind. Rohan opened the envelope later that day, and as he read the heartfelt words penned by Mrs. Verma, tears welled up in his eyes. She had been more than a teacher. She had been a mentor, a friend, and a guiding light in his life. After high school, Rohan pursued his passion for art and history, earning a degree in fine arts with a focus on historical paintings. He continued to explore the world of creativity and self-expression, inspired by the lessons he had learned from Mrs. Verma. Years later, as Rohan stood before a gallery filled with his own paintings, he couldn't help but think of his favorite teacher. He had achieved his dream of becoming an artist, and he knew that Mrs. Verma's guidance and belief in him had played a significant role in his journey. Rohan never forgot the lessons he had learned from Mrs. Verma, lessons that extended far beyond the classroom. He carried with him the values of empathy, kindness, and the pursuit of knowledge throughout his life. When he looked back on his school days, he realized that the impact of a great teacher went beyond the curriculum. Mrs. Verma had not only shaped his academic journey, but had also left an indelible mark on his character and his understanding of the world. And so, as Rohan continued to pursue his passion for art, explore the mysteries of history, and share his knowledge with others, he carried with him the legacy of Mrs. Verma, legacy of inspiration, mentorship, and the enduring bond between a favorite teacher and her grateful student.